Get that dishwasher off my stage. People like him belong behind a sink, not in front of my donors. God, ma'am, the server knocked the tray into me. I was clearing plates like I was told. Ga, your job is invisible. Kneel down and clean that mess. Use your apron if you have to. She poured an entire glass of Merlot over his head. Look at that. Even the stain has more class than the man wearing it. You're done. Security. Check his pockets. His kind always pockets the silverware. Ga, you might want to think twice about what you're throwing away, Miss Sinclair. A threat from the help. How precious. Get him out. Ga, good morning, Miss Sinclair. Please sit. You look unwell. Ga, those guards answer to me now. I hold 58% of this company. Your office, your title, and your future. Ga, that's impossible. You wash dishes. Ga, I did. Just long enough to learn what you are when nobody important is looking. Have you ever been judged by the apron you wear instead of what you've built with your hands? This is how a dishwasher dismantled a CEO's empire in 48 hours. 4:30 in the morning, downtown Toronto. The Lakeshore Grand Hotel stood 14 stories above Front Street, its limestone face still holding the last blue of night. Inside the basement kitchen, one man worked alone. Kwame Asante, 44 years old, gray kitchen porter's uniform, sleeves pushed past his elbows. His hands moved through a basin of soapy water, pulling plates free, stacking them in careful rows on the steel drying rack. The extraction fan hummed its one low note. Steam curled around the pot lights. Somewhere 2 floors above, the lobby clock ticked past the hour, and nobody heard it but the marble. 26 years ago, a woman named Abena Asante scrubbed the same sinks. She worked doubles through the winter, her knuckles cracked and wrapped in dollar store bandages, her smile unchanged. She raised her son on a kitchen porter's wage and a public library card. On Kwame's left wrist sat her watch, a small thing with a faded leather band. It had stopped ticking the morning she died. He wore it anyway. By 6, the hotel began to breathe. Kwame greeted every soul who came through the service entrance. He knew the night porter, Mr. Beaulieu, whose grandson had a hockey tournament Saturday in Barrie. He knew that Marta in housekeeping took her tea with 2 sugars and a slice of lemon she cut herself because the kitchen never sliced them thin enough. People in kitchen uniforms learn a building's pulse. Nobody ever asks them what they hear. 2 staircases connected the basement to the lobby. The carpeted one in the front carried guests and management. The concrete one in the back carried mops, linen carts, and people the guests never noticed. Kwame took the concrete stairs. He listened. In 3 months, he had learned more from that back stairwell than any consultant's court report could have told him. Housekeepers shorted on overtime. A line cook weeping by the loading dock. Names erased from the schedule the week after they filed complaints. At 6:15, his phone buzzed in the storage closet. He closed the door and leaned against a shelf of industrial bleach before answering. A woman's voice came through, clipped and precise. Pinnacle closes Saturday morning. The signatures are ready. Are you sure you want to keep this up? Kwame looked at the shelf of dish soap and folded rags. 1 more week, he said quietly. I need to see what this place looks like from the drain, not the penthouse. He slid the phone back into his pocket and returned to the basin. At 7:15, the kitchen met its first storm. Victoria Sinclair swept through the service doors like a change in pressure. Heels striking tile, phone pressed to one ear, sunglasses still on despite the fluorescent lights. She cut straight through the wet floor Kwame had just mopped, leaving a trail of black heel prints across the clean tile. She did not look down. She did not look at him. She drained her espresso and tossed the cup toward the bin beside his station. It bounced off the rim, rolled beneath the prep table, and dripped onto the floor he had just finished. She kept walking. Kwame bent, retrieved the cup, and wiped the drip with a rag. The elevator swallowed her. 14 floors up, her corner office overlooked Lake Ontario. Victoria Sinclair, general manager for 5 years. Investors loved her RevPAR numbers. Toronto Life loved her wardrobe. Her executive assistants lasted 7 months on average. The people who emptied her office trash knew a different woman. They tracked her moods like weather warnings, whispered floor to floor before she arrived. That week, the entire hotel buzzed about one event: the Sinclair Foundation Summer Gala. Every July, Victoria commandeered the hotel's lakeside terrace and the private garden beyond it. She hung 1,000 lanterns in the birch trees and invited 200 of the wealthiest names in Ontario. Officially, the gala raised funds for underprivileged youth in Scarborough. Unofficially, it raised Victoria, her photograph with every provincial minister, her name on every program, her face in every society page. In the service corridor, a clipboard asked for gala support staff. Extra hands, extra pay, one long night. Kwame printed his name at the bottom of the list. The kitchen supervisor frowned. "You sure about this? Miss Sinclair gets sharp at her events." Kwame clicked the pen closed. "I've heard sharp before," he said. "I want to hear it up close." Saturday evening arrived dressed in copper light. The sun dropped low over the lake and the first town cars rolled up the gravel drive. Kwame buttoned his service jacket in a staff tent that smelled of canvas and cut grass. Through the flap, he watched servers carry towers of champagne flutes across the lawn toward the terrace. A string trio tuned beside the fountain. Laughter sharpened in the warm air. 200 guests, 1,000 lanterns, and one dishwasher nobody planned to notice. The night had no idea what it was carrying. The terrace glowed like something borrowed from a film. Lanterns hung in the birch trees, dripping amber over white linen. The string trio played Debussy under a glass canopy. Servers in black moved between round tables carrying lobster, crostini, and flutes of Niagara sparkling. Ontario's richest laughed beneath the summer sky. Ministers, developers, broadcast anchors, and at the center of it all, in a midnight blue gown with a diamond collar, stood Victoria Sinclair, glowing brighter than her own lanterns. Kwame worked the margins. His job was simple: restock the service stations, clear empty trays, keep the back lanes running. He carried crates of glassware from the van to the prep tent. He hauled ice from the basement in canvas bags that left wet trails on the gravel. He swept a broken bottle near the bar before anyone stepped in it. Sweat rolled down his back beneath the service jacket. He didn't mind. You watch a machine run long enough, you learn exactly where it squeaks. In the prep tent, he met Aliyah Farouk, 20 years old, a catering server saving for her first year at Ryerson. She moved fast and apologized to everyone, including the furniture. Kwame helped her balance a tray she was about to lose. "You're the guy from the basement," she said. "The one who remembers everybody's kid's name." Kwame smiled. "Only the ones that matter, which is everybody's." She laughed for the first time all evening. At 9, Victoria took the stage. The spotlight found her like it had been waiting. She spoke about giving back, about lifting up forgotten communities, about how generosity was the signature of greatness. Her voice caught in all the rehearsed places. 200 phones rose to record her. Behind the canopy, Kwame stacked chairs and listened to a woman describe a compassion he had never once seen her practice. The auction raised $1.8 million in 35 minutes. A ski chalet in Whistler. A weekend aboard a yacht named after Victoria's mother. Guests bid with paddles in one hand and single malt in the other. On the stage screen, photographs of smiling children rotated on a loop. Nobody asked their names. The children were wallpaper. The donations were applause converted into a currency Victoria could wear. The auction wound down and the wine flowed harder. Near the main terrace, a service station ran dry on clean glasses. A server waved Kwame over, just one tray, 20 feet, from the cart to the station. Kwame lifted it high and started across the parquet edge of the dance floor. Lantern light swirled. Perfume hung thick as lake fog. He was 4 steps from the station when it happened. A broad-shouldered man in a tuxedo stepped backward, laughing too hard at his own joke. A glass in each hand. His elbow caught the tray square. 14 glasses of red wine took flight. They came down on the white runner, on the hem of a silver dress, on Kwame's sleeve. The crash cut through the music like a slap. The trio stopped. 200 heads turned. The man who caused it dissolved into the crowd without a word. Kwame was already on his knees, gathering glass with steady hands, stacking shards onto the tray. The woman in the silver dress touched his shoulder and said it was nothing. Truly, These things happen. It could have ended there. A cloth, a mop, 10 quiet minutes. But a spotlight was already swinging across the terrace. Victoria crossed the floor with her microphone still live. She looked at the stain. She looked at Kwame kneeling in it. And she smiled the way someone smiles when they've found the evening's entertainment. She raised the microphone and her voice rolled over the entire garden. Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, it appears our kitchen help is redecorating my terrace. Laughter rippled, thin and uneasy. Kwame rose to his feet. Ma'am, the guest bumped into me. I was doing my job. I'll have it cleaned in 10 minutes. Vic turned to her audience, delighted. Did you catch that? The dishwasher talks back. She let the laughter build, then tilted her head at him. Tell me your name, sweetheart, slowly, so we can all hear who ruined my gala. Kwame Asante. Kitchen staff. Night shift. Kitchen staff. She said it the way you'd say something stuck to your shoe. And who told kitchen staff it could walk through my guests? You smell like a fryer. You were spoiling the air before you spoiled the carpet. A few guests shifted in their seats. Most kept their phones raised. In the catering line, Aliyah Farouk lifted hers with a shaking hand and pressed record. Victoria gestured at the stains spreading under the lights. Do you have any idea what this runner costs? Hand-loomed Italian linen. $40,000. That is more than your annual salary, isn't it? She didn't wait for an answer. Of course it is. And now it's wearing your incompetence. Her voice dropped into something colder. My grandmother used to say you can put a bow tie on a mop, but it's still a mop. She stepped closer. The midnight blue gown whispered against the stone. You want to keep this job? Then get on your knees and scrub that linen. Now, use your apron if you have to. The crowd went still. Kwame looked at the stain, then at her. He knelt. Not because he was broken. Because some men can kneel without ever bowing. He folded a cloth and worked the wine in slow, careful circles. Victoria watched him for a moment. Then she lifted a fresh glass of Merlot from a passing tray, held it out over his head, and tipped it, slowly, all the way. Dark red ran through his hair, down his collar, into the linen he was cleaning. Oops, she said into the microphone. My wine slipped. Look at that. Even the stain has more class than the man wearing it. This time, nobody laughed. Somewhere behind the fountain, a fork was set down. A camera flash fired. Near the stage, an older board member named Douglas Parr lowered his glass and did not pick it up again. His jaw tightened. He had spent 30 years on hospitality boards. He had never witnessed anything quite like this. In the service line, a bartender leaned toward Aliyah. Somebody should stop this. Nobody did. 200 of the most influential people in Ontario stood beneath the charity lanterns and studied their shoes. A minister checked his watch. A developer reached for another drink. The garden stayed very, very quiet. Kwame rose, wine dripping from his chin. He set the cloth down, squared his shoulders, and looked straight at her. The silence stretched tight enough to hum. Victoria mistook it for surrender. She always did. She turned to the crowd, arms wide, a ringmaster in midnight blue. People like him wash dishes, she announced. They don't belong among my guests, and as of tonight, he doesn't belong among my employees either. She spun back to Kwame and let each word fall like a blade. You're fired, not by email, not by letter. Right here, in front of everyone. Consider it charity. It's the only kind you'll ever touch. She snapped her fingers toward the security team. Travis, get this dishwasher off my terrace. Travis Nolan came through the crowd like a wall in a blazer. Head of hotel security, Victoria's favorite shadow. 2 guards flanked him. He gripped Kwam's arm hard enough to bruise. Kwam did not pull away. He looked past Nolan, straight at Victoria, and spoke in a voice low enough that the microphone barely caught it. You might want to think twice about what you're throwing away, Miss Sinclair. For half a second, something flickered behind her eyes. Then, the wine and the spotlight washed it away. She laughed into the microphone, a threat from the help. How precious. Out. The string trio struck up a waltz on her signal, bright and forced. The Gala lurched back to life like an engine missing a cylinder. 2 guards walked Kwame Asante across the longest garden in the city. The walk to the gate took 3 minutes. Kwame kept his spine straight the whole way, wine-dried tacky on his neck. Gravel crunched under 3 sets of shoes. Behind him, the waltz played on, but the laughter never quite found its rhythm again. Guests parted as he passed, eyes sliding away, the way people avoid looking at an accident they helped cause. They were 10 feet from the iron gate when Nolan's radio crackled. Victoria's voice came through bright with Merlot. "One more thing, Travis. Check his pockets. His kind always pockets the silverware." Nolan smiled for the first time all night. He held up a hand and the procession stopped under the iron archway. "You heard her. Empty your pockets." Bag on the ground. Aliyah Farouk stood frozen behind the catering table, phone still recording, heart hammering. She had captured all of it: the kneeling, the wine, the firing. 12 minutes of footage that would be worth more than every check written at that gala. She didn't know that yet. Neither did Victoria. The only person on that terrace who understood what had been set in motion was the man standing under the archway, waiting calmly for them to search his things. Nolan yanked the canvas bag off Kwame's shoulder and turned it upside down. Everything Kwame owned at that job hit the gravel. A dented lunch container, a thermos with a taped handle, a worn paperback, spine cracked white, and a photograph in a plastic sleeve, face down beside the iron gate. Phones leaned closer. Somewhere on the lawn, a woman whispered, "Is this really necessary?" Nobody answered her. Nolan crouched and pawed through the items with 2 fingers like they might bite. No silverware, no crystal, no stolen bottle of wine. He shook the container, opened the thermos, fanned the paperback pages. Nothing fell out but a grocery receipt from the No Frills on Queen Street. The crowd by the gate began to look at each other. The show was running long, and there was no finale in sight. Then Nolan reached the photograph. He held it up to the lantern light. A woman in a kitchen uniform smiling in a tiled corridor. The Lakeshore Grand Basement Kitchen, 1998. A Bena Asante mid-law, caught by a co-worker's disposable camera. Flour on her apron, joy in her eyes. Nolan snorted. Family tradition, eh? He flicked the photograph away like a bottle cap. It spun twice and landed face down on the gravel. For the first time that night, Quime moved fast. Not at Nolan. Past him. He knelt on the gravel, picked up the photograph, and wiped the dust from it with his sleeve. The wine stains on his collar, the red on his cuff, none of it had reached his face until now. His jaw worked once, twice. Then he slid the photograph inside his shirt, against his chest, and stood back up. Satisfied? His voice stayed level, but there was gravel in it that hadn't been there before. Nolan found nothing and hated it. "Get off the property. If I see you near this hotel, I'll have you arrested." The gates groaned open. Kwame gathered his things from the ground, one by one, taking his time. Then he walked through the archway and into the dark. The iron clanged shut behind him. He walked the shoulder of Lakeshore Boulevard for a while before reaching his car. Heat lightning flickered over the lake. Behind him, the music swelled, and the toasts went on. He did not look back. Back on the terrace, Victoria retook the stage with a fresh glass. The night needed a bow, and she intended to tie it herself. "Friends, forgive the interruption," she said, "but let it remind us why we're here." She gestured toward the gate. "Some people are born to be lifted. Others are born to do the lifting, and they should be grateful for the work. Tonight we give, because giving is what separates us from them. Us from them." The phrase hung over the garden like smoke. A few guests clapped because clapping was easier than thinking. Douglas Parr did not clap. He set his napkin on the table, told his wife he needed air, and walked the gravel path alone. 30 years on boards teaches a man to read a room. This room had just told him exactly what it was. A mile down Lakeshore, Quam sat in his 11-year-old Civic with the windows down. Crickets sang in the dark ravine beside the road. The Gala lanterns pulsed faint over the tree line behind him. He peeled the photograph from inside his shirt and set it on the dashboard. His mother smiled at him from a tiled kitchen, a lifetime away. He looked at her for a long moment, then he picked up his phone. Nadine Mensah answered on the second ring. She was the kind of lawyer who slept with one eye on her inbox. "Kwame, it's almost midnight. I know. I'm sorry." A pause. You don't sound sorry. You sound decided. Kwame watched a moth circle the dome light. Move the closing to tomorrow morning, he said. First thing, and call an emergency board session for Monday 8 a.m. 14th floor. Nadine went quiet for 3 full seconds. What happened tonight? I got fired. You got. Kwame, you own the place by tomorrow. Saturday, he corrected gently, and the answer is the same person who's been treating people like me this way for 5 years. I watched it from the inside for 3 months. Tonight I wore it. He touched the photograph on the dashboard. Now I'm done watching. The sellers expect Friday, Nadine said. Their lawyers won't like Sunday. Then we make Sunday worth liking. Offer the accelerated signing bonus we discussed. Wire the difference. They'll come. Papers rustled on her end. A keyboard began to click. You realize what you're asking me to do in 30 hours. I do. You've had the documents ready for 2 weeks. A short laugh escaped her. Yes, I have. All right, Mr. Asante. Sunday it is. One more thing before she hung up. The board notice, Nadine said. It has to come from the new controlling shareholder. The moment I send it, people will start asking who Pinnacle Capital is. Kwame looked through the windshield at the dark road ahead. Let them ask. They had 3 months to ask who I was. Nobody did. They have until Monday morning to start wondering. While Kwame drove home, Aliyah Farouk sat at a bus stop on Queen Street, scrolling through her footage with cold hands. 12 minutes, every second sharp and steady. She watched the wine fall in slow motion and felt sick all over again. She sent it to the group chat with the other catering staff. 3 words. Look at this. By the time the streetcar came, it had been forwarded 11 times. By Sunday morning, it lived in 100 phones. Lakeshore Grand housekeepers watched it in break rooms. Front desk clerks watched it twice. A night porter watched it and thought about his own daughter working shifts at a restaurant downtown. Nobody posted it publicly yet. Fear has a long leash in a company like that. But it moved underneath, hand to hand, like current beneath winter ice. Word of the video reached Nolan on Sunday afternoon. He called Aliyah's catering company and asked very politely for the names of everyone who worked the gala. Then he texted Victoria. Some staff filmed Saturday night. Want me to handle it? Her reply took 5 seconds. Handle what? I gave a masterclass. Let them watch. Nolan read the message twice, shrugged, and poured himself a rye. He was paid to follow orders, not to smell smoke. At 9 on Sunday morning, in a quiet law office above a bakery on Ossington Avenue, Kwame Asante signed his name 42 times. The Hospitality Trust sold its controlling stake. 2 institutional funds followed. When the last page slid across the table, Nadine Mensah capped her pen and looked at him. 58%, she said. Congratulations. You now own the hotel that fired you last night. Kwame smelled bread baking through the floorboards. Funny, he said. It doesn't smell like a lobby. At noon, the emails went out. 6 board members received the same message from a firm none of them recognized. Pinnacle Capital LLC, new controlling shareholder of Lakeshore Hospitality Group, requests an emergency session. Monday, 8 a.m. Executive boardroom. Attendance mandatory. Agenda. Leadership review. Within an hour, every phone on the board was ringing every other phone. Nobody had answers. Nobody knew the name. Nobody could find a face behind Pinnacle. Douglas Parr read the email twice on his porch in Rosedale, coffee going cold in his hand. Controlling shareholder, the Hospitality Trust had been shopping its stake for a year. He knew that. What he hadn't known was that someone had actually bought it. He thought about the gala, the wine running down a man's neck, the way the dishwasher had stood there, calm as still water. Douglas set down his mug and said aloud, "To nobody, Monday can't come fast enough." Victoria spent her Sunday in a silk robe, curating the gala photos for Instagram. She posted 9 of them. Her favorite showed her mid-speech, arm raised, lanterns blazing behind her. The caption read, "Giving back is who we are." She read the board email between posts and rolled her eyes. Leadership review. Some activist fund flexing its new shares. She had eaten activist investors for breakfast before. She approved her own talking points and ordered a car for 7:30. There was one more item on her Monday agenda, and it made her smile. Her own compensation package, a $3.5 million retention bonus, drafted by her favorite consultant, waiting for board approval. The Gala photos would soften them up, the charity numbers would close the deal. She fell asleep early, certain that Monday belonged to her. 12 kilometers east, a man in a small Leslieville apartment ironed a charcoal suit and laid his mother's photograph on the table beside his cufflinks. Monday came up humid and gray. By 7:40, the 14th floor smelled of coffee and nerves. Board members gathered in clusters, trading guesses in low voices. Douglas Parr stood apart at the window, watching the CN Tower disappear into cloud. At 7:55, the elevator chimed. Nadine Mensah stepped out first, briefcase in hand, and behind her came a man some of them almost recognized, in a charcoal suit, wearing a watch that did not tick. Victoria arrived at 7:58, 2 minutes early, armor on, white blazer, red folder, victory smile. She pushed through the boardroom doors, talking before she looked up. "All right, let's make this quick. I have a hotel to run." Then she stopped. The room was full and silent. 6 board members sat along the table like jurors. The chair at the far end stood turned toward the window, its back to the room. A woman she did not know stood at the head of the table. Charcoal dress, steady eyes, a stack of documents squared in front of her. "Miss Sinclair, Nadine Mensah, counsel for Pinnacle Capital. Please take a seat." Victoria did not take a seat. And Pinnacle Capital is what, exactly? A hedge fund? A pension vulture? "Whoever you are, you called a meeting in my boardroom." Nadine opened the folder without hurry. As of 9:12 yesterday morning, Pinnacle Capital completed the acquisition of 58% of Lakeshore Hospitality Group. The Hospitality Trust, the Crescent Institutional Fund, and the Bayview Pension Account. All signed, all filed, all final. She slid a single page down the polished table. "So, with respect, Miss Sinclair, this is not your boardroom anymore." Victoria's eyes flew down the page. Numbers, signatures, a seal. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Fine. Then where is he?" "The mystery owner. I'll negotiate with a principal, not a lawyer." Nadine almost smiled. "He's already here." The chair at the head of the table began to turn. It came around slowly, the leather creaking once. Morning light from the lake fell on a charcoal suit, a quiet face, and a cracked leather watch band. "Good morning, Miss Sinclair. Please sit. You look unwell." The red folder slipped from her fingers and slapped the floor. For 3 full seconds, nothing in the room moved. Then she laughed, one sharp note, because her mind had nowhere else to go. How did you get into this boardroom?" "Security." 2 guards stepped inside the door. Neither of them moved toward Kwame. "They answer to me now," Kwame said. "I hold 58% of this company, your office, your title, and your future." He let that settle. "Impossible," she whispered. "You wash dishes." "I did, just long enough to learn what you are when nobody important is looking." He stood and walked the length of the table. "You once told 200 people that men like me wash dishes. You were right. I'm here to clean the biggest mess in this building." The board members were trading glances. One of them said it aloud. "Asante. Northbound Freight. Asante." Quam nodded once. "I built Northbound Freight from 1 truck and a laptop in Brampton. Sold it 4 years ago for more money than I can spend in a lifetime. My mother washed dishes in this hotel for 22 years. Abena Asante. Night shift. Basement kitchen." He set her photograph on the table, facing the room. She believed this hotel was worth her whole life. "I came to find out if she was right. So for 3 months, I stood at the sink where she stood. I wanted to know what this place looks like from the basement, not from a quarterly report." He stopped across from Victoria. "From the basement, I learned the housekeepers get shorted on overtime. I learned names vanish from the schedule after they file complaints. And Saturday night, I learned what the general manager does to a man in a kitchen uniform when she thinks nobody important is watching." Nadine lifted a small remote. The screen on the wall lit up, and there it was. High definition, clean audio, the kneeling. The wine tipped slowly all the way. Even the stain has more class than the man wearing it. The firing. The bag turned out on the gravel. The photograph flicked away like trash. 12 minutes played to a silent room. Two board members could not finish watching. Douglas Parr watched every second, hands folded, knuckles white. When the screen went dark, Victoria found her voice. That's edited. Out of context. It was a private event. 200 guests and a microphone, Nadine said. Which part was private? Victoria spun toward the board. You've known me for 5 years. You've seen my numbers. You cannot seriously let a stunt like this. She stopped, because she finally saw their faces. 6 faces. Not one of them held anything she recognized. Douglas Parr rose from his seat with a printed contract in his hand. Miss Sinclair, Section 14 of your employment agreement. The conduct clause you signed at your last renewal. He read slowly, the way people read verdicts. Any public behavior that brings material disrepute to the company or its personnel constitutes grounds for termination for cause. He set the contract down. I was at that gala. I watched you pour wine on an employee's head in front of half the province's cabinet. The room tilted around Victoria Sinclair. The bonus folder lay on the floor by her shoe, belonging suddenly to another lifetime. Quam returned to the chairman's seat and rested his hands on the table, calm as a Sunday morning. Members of the board, he said, Pinnacle Capital calls for a vote on the immediate termination of the general manager for cause. He looked at her, and his voice did not rise at all. You wanted everyone to watch, so we'll do this the same way, in the open. Victoria moved fast then, the way a drowning person grabs at anything floating. The laughter came first. This is theater. You hired act. Douglas, did he pay you? Nobody blinked. The laughter died in her throat. Then came the pivot, smooth as oil. Mr. Asante. Kwame. Saturday was. I'd been drinking. The stress of the gala. You understand how these events get. I poured my heart into that night, into this hotel. If I had known who you were, I would never have. She heard it leave her mouth. Everyone heard it. The sentence hung in the air like a signed confession, because that is exactly what it was. Kwame nodded slowly. There it is, he said. That's the problem, Miss Sinclair. You needed to know who I was to treat me like a human being. He tapped the photograph on the table. My mother worked here for 22 years. Nobody important ever knew who she was either. Imagine how she was treated. Or don't imagine. We just watched 12 minutes of it. Nadine called the vote. All in favor of terminating the general manager for cause, effective immediately. Douglas's hand went up first, then the woman beside him, then the next. 6 hands, one by one, around the table. Nadine recorded each name without expression. Unanimous. Termination for cause under Section 14. All severance, bonuses, and unvested equity are forfeit. The $3.5 million folder stayed on the floor where it had fallen. The composure cracked all the way through. You can't do this. I built this hotel's reputation. I am this hotel. Her voice climbed. I'll sue every one of you. You're welcome to, Nadine said pleasantly. Discovery would include the video, the search at the gate, and 5 years of personnel files. Please do sue. Victoria's mouth worked, but the arithmetic was already happening behind her eyes. Lawyers love that arithmetic. Defendants never do. Kwame turned to the door. Send in Mr. Nolan. Travis Nolan entered with his chin up, scanning the room. He saw the photograph on the table. He saw Kwame in the chairman's seat. The chin came down by degrees. Mr. Nolan, Saturday night, you searched a man's personal belongings without cause, on a public lawn, on camera. You're suspended pending investigation. Badge and key card on the table. Nolan looked at Victoria, waiting for the order that would fix this. She did not even see him. Whatever he had been to her, it had only mattered while it was useful. He unclipped the badge slowly, set it on the polished wood, and laid the key card beside it. 2 small clicks in a silent room. On his way out, he paused at the door, but no words came. Some men only discover their voice was borrowed when it gets repossessed. Then it was her turn. Kwame did not raise his voice. Miss Sinclair, these gentlemen will escort you out. You may collect personal items from your office under supervision, hotel property stays. The same 2 guards who had flanked Nolan at the gala stepped forward, her own security team, the ones who used to clear lobbies for her. One of them said quietly, "Ma'am, this way." The elevator ride took 14 floors and a lifetime. When the doors opened on the lobby, the morning shift was arriving. Receptionists, bellhops, two housekeepers with a cart by the service corridor. Word had already traveled the way it always does in a hotel. Basement first. Nobody jeered. Nobody clapped. They simply stopped and looked and let her walk the full length of the marble in heels that suddenly sounded very loud. Halfway across, her heel caught the wet edge of a freshly mopped section. She didn't fall, but she grabbed the edge of a luggage cart to stay upright. A yellow sign stood beside the spot, ordinary as oxygen. Caution, wet floor. The housekeeper who had placed it looked away politely. Victoria Sinclair straightened herself, walked the last 50 feet, and pushed through the revolving doors into a city that no longer worked for her. Upstairs, the boardroom exhaled. Douglas Parr shook Quam's hand and held it longer than business requires. "Your mother," he said. "I think I remember her. Basement kitchen. She used to sing while she worked." Quam smiled for the first time that morning. "Every shift," he said. "Mostly hymns." She said, "Stainless steel carries a melody better than any church." The video broke the surface on Tuesday night. A local station ran 40 seconds of it with the guests' faces blurred. By Wednesday morning, the full 12 minutes sat on every platform that mattered. By Wednesday evening, the clip of wine falling on a kneeling man had been viewed 5 million times. The caption most people shared was the same 6 words. The dishwasher she fired owned the hotel. National morning shows picked it up Thursday. They played the kneeling. They played "Even the stain has more class than the man wearing it." Then they played the 4-sentence statement the Lakeshore Grand released, signed by its new chairman. Anchors read it twice because it said so much by saying so little. Effective immediately, Victoria Sinclair no longer represents this company. Lakeshore apologizes to its employees, its housekeepers, its kitchen staff, and every person who has ever worn its uniform. Her foundation collapsed faster than her career. The 3 largest sponsors withdrew by Friday: a bank, an airline, a telecom. The minister from the Gala released a statement claiming he had attended briefly and left early. Photographs proved otherwise. The internet enjoyed proving it. The Sinclair Foundation website went down for maintenance that weekend. It never came back up. Inside the hotel, Nadine opened the books. Kwame gave her one instruction: follow everything, no matter whose name it touches. Her team pulled 5 years of personnel files, termination records, and charity ledgers. They worked nights in a conference room that smelled of cold coffee and printer toner. People started talking. The housekeepers who had been shorted on overtime filed their records with Nadine's team. A line cook sent an email she had been drafting in her head for 3 years. Old fear takes time to die, but it dies faster when the man at the top once wore the same uniform. By the end of the month, the tip line had logged 160 messages. The pattern surfaced within 2 weeks. 9 terminations over 5 years, everyone a Black or South Asian employee. Everyone labeled restructuring. A housekeeper fired 6 days after reporting harassment. A sous chef let go 1 month before his pension vested. A front desk clerk dismissed for attitude after asking about pay equity. 9 files, 9 careers, the same signature at the bottom of each. V. Sinclair. The charity ledgers told their own story. The gala that raised $1.8 million for underprivileged youth had delivered less than $200,000 to any young person anywhere. The rest dissolved into event costs, consulting fees, and a yacht rental invoiced as community outreach. The yacht named after her mother. Nadine laid the invoices side by side on the boardroom table and said one word: enough. The 9 came forward, one phone call at a time. Some were angry. Some were tired. One, the housekeeper, cried on the phone for a full minute before she could speak. The hotel did not hide behind lawyers. Kwame met 7 of them in person, in the same boardroom, in the same chair. Each meeting started with the same sentence: the company owes you an apology, and the company pays its debts. 8 months after the gala, Victoria Sinclair settled everything at once. The numbers stayed sealed. The conditions did not. A public apology written and spoken on camera. Personal payments to all 9. Repayment of every misused charity dollar. and a consent agreement barring her from serving as an officer or director of any hospitality company for 10 years. The apology aired on a Tuesday. Victoria sat at a bare table, no jewelry, reading from a page her lawyers had approved. Word by word. I treated a man as less than human because of his uniform and the color of his skin. No stress excuses that. No glass of wine excuses that. I was not drunk on Merlot that night. I was drunk on power. For once, nobody doubted she had written that last line herself. There was no prison sentence, and there did not need to be. What Victoria lost was the only thing she had ever truly owned. The room. Every room. The tables stopped having a head for her to sit at. The invitations stopped. The cameras pointed elsewhere. She sold the lakeside property and moved somewhere quieter, where for the first time in her life, she was simply a person in line like everyone else. The hotel grew lighter. Lakeshore paid back every shorted hour of housekeeper overtime, with interest going back 5 years. Schedules stopped swallowing people who complained. The 9 got more than checks. 4 of them got their jobs back, with promotions and back pay. The housekeeper who had cried on the phone now managed the department that once erased her. And Aliyah Farouk, the 20-year-old with the steady hands, got a phone call from Nadine Mensah. Her video had been licensed by the networks. The licensing fees belonged to her. The number on the check was larger than 3 years of catering shifts. Attached to it was a note in careful handwriting. You kept the camera still when grown people kept their heads down. Lakeshore would like to discuss your tuition. Late that fall, a national magazine ran the whole story under a single photograph. Not of Victoria, not even of Kwame in the chairman's seat. The editors chose the frame from Aliyah's video where a man kneels on a white linen runner, wine shining in his hair, back straight as a flagpole. The headline ran 6 words. He was never the one kneeling. 6 months after the gala, the Lakeshore Grand looked the same from the street. Inside, almost nothing was. The service elevator and the guest elevator still ran side by side, but the pay stubs riding in them had changed. Kitchen staff got a 30% raise. Housekeeping, security, the loading dock, all of them. When a reporter asked Kwame why he started with the lowest paid floors, he shrugged, because I've ridden both elevators. Only one of them needed fixing. There's a name for what happened at the Lakeshore now. New hires hear it during orientation, told plainly, no slides, no music. They watch 4 minutes of the gala video, then the boardroom statement. A trainer stands at the front and says the same thing every time. This is the only time you will ever see a person treated that way at this hotel. If you see it twice, you call me. If I don't act, you call him. The boardroom changed too. Every month, 1 seat at the table belongs to a frontline employee. A housekeeper 1 month, a dishwasher the next. They don't come to listen. They come with the floor's questions and the floor gets answers. Douglas Parr, now lead director, calls it the cheapest consulting the company has ever bought. In September, the hotel gathered in the basement for an unveiling. A small bronze plaque now sits on the wall of the kitchen corridor, at the exact spot where a night dishwasher used to hum hymns to the stainless steel. The Abina Asante Scholarship. Full tuition, every year, for children of hospitality workers. Kitchen kids, housekeeping kids, security kids. The first class had 10 names. The first name read aloud was Aliyah Farouk. The lakeside estate has a new purpose too. Lakeshore bought it outright that winter. No more auctions under the birch trees. Every summer now, the lawn hosts the company picnic. The families of 700 employees eat barbecue where the string trio used to play. Kids chase each other across the grass. Nobody checks anybody's pockets at the gate. Aliyah stood at the little podium in her catering flats and unfolded a piece of paper she never quite managed to read. She looked at Kwame instead. You said you only remember the names that matter, she said. Which is everybody's. I get it now. It wasn't much of a speech. The lobby applauded like it was. In the back, 2 housekeepers leaned on their cart and one of them wiped her eyes with a glove. And Kwame. Most mornings, if you come in early enough, you can still find him in the basement kitchen at 4:30. suit jacket draped over a chair, sleeves rolled past his elbows, hands moving through soapy water in long, patient strokes right beside his mother's plaque. The first time a new hire saw it, she stopped dead and whispered to the night porter, "Is that the chairman?" Mr. Beaulieu smiled. "That's the dishwasher who owns the place. Around here, those are the same thing." The watch on his wrist still does not tick. He never fixed it. He never will. Some mornings he catches the light on its cracked band and hears a hymn drifting up from a tiled kitchen 26 years deep. Time does not need to move for a promise to be kept. Real talk. I told this story for one reason. Somewhere tonight, somebody in a uniform is getting talked down to by somebody in a suit. And I need you to remember which one of them owned the room. Worth doesn't come with a title. It never did. So here's my question, and I really want to know, if you were Kwame, standing on that stage with wine running down your neck, knowing you could end her career with a single sentence, would you have stayed silent until Monday, or would you have said it right there? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone, and if this story hit you anywhere at all, share it with someone who wears a uniform to work, a dishwasher, a housekeeper, a server, a porter. Let them know somebody sees them. Then subscribe and turn on notifications, because stories like this one drop here every single week, and the next one might be about someone you know. Until then, keep your head up and your spine straight, just like Kwame.